welcome to Halifax Jazz Festival, Jazz Appreciation Month. This is our second workshop in our series. We're so happy to be here. We're coming to you live from my living room here in Halifax, Shavuktuk. Just want to say that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And we need to respect treaty rights and respect Indigenous sovereignty. Also, I'd just like to mention, we're here on the anniversary of the horrible Nova Scotia massacre that happened just a year ago. It's really hard to believe. I know that's on a lot of people's minds today, so just want to remember all those people and hold them in our thoughts as we move forward. And hopefully that we can bring some levity and something to take people's minds off of hard times right now, and with everything that's going on right now. So that's what we're here to do. That's, I think, an important thing to keep in mind about music, is that it does have the power to heal and help. And so that we're happy to do that today, and very happy to have our guests here, Geordie Haley, who's going to be giving us a walkthrough about all sorts of stuff. Let me just give you a little bit of a rundown for those of you that don't know Geordie Haley. Geordie Haley is a guitarist, composer, improviser, and educator, and has been a featured artist with new music presenters Suddenly Listen, Upstream Music, Vocalypse, and Open Arts. Geordie is a frequent contributor to the Halifax Jazz Festival, many other festivals including Harvest Jazz and Blues, Open Waters, collaborates with so many different people across the city and beyond, including Susanne Chui, Rhonda Baker, Sara, Coffin, Jacinthe, Armstrong, all the wonderful movers. He's played Neptune Theatre, New Brunswick and Canadian Stage, accompanied so many great improvisers and musicians, including Chrsitine Duncan, Tena Palmer, Tanya Tagaq, and Measha, Brueggergosman. He's got many of his own compositions and albums that you can check out on CDBABY, as well as lots of great stuff on social media and beyond. As well, Geordie is head of the guitar program at NSCC Music Department, and has been a faculty at the Maritime Conservatory since 2009. So we're very excited to share a wealth of experience. Let's welcome Geordie Haley. Oh, I can hear them. Yeah. Thanks so much for being here on a nice Sunday morning. We're here just hanging in the living room. I figured it'd be a great opportunity just to talk some jazz, improvisation, and really anything that you're open to. I will mention that you can drop comments and questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring that through Facebook and YouTube, and we'll have some time at the end to sort of address some of those questions as they come up.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andrew, for a wonderful introduction. It's great to be here for Jazz Appreciation Month, and like you were saying about respecting the Mi'kma'ki unceded territory, and also this morning on my mind is the an anniversary of the most horrible tragedy, and so we're all thinking about that, and hopefully we'll put a little of that into some blues ideas, because as you were saying, music really helps to heal, and I've always found that the blues are a great place to begin with when you're talking about jazz. Another thing that I wanted to mention was how a lot of people feel that sometimes jazz is maybe an elitist music, maybe a music that is unapproachable, but really, like any kind of music, it welcomes you. It's a welcoming event. So saying that, maybe you and I could start playing a little bit. I wanted to try just like a nice modal improvisation, and maybe we'll work our way into a blues.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Great. Well, can you just clarify what that kind of means? People might be wondering.
Well, a modal improvisation is maybe we're going to start with something that isn't defined by a song form, but more we're going to maybe pick a mode. I'd say let's say a Dorian mode. Let's say D Dorian is always a good one. Which
classic. That's
classic, and that's like a D major kind of thing, or excuse me, a D minor thing, maybe coming from the C major scale. The modes are sort of focal points built into each scale. So if I play a C major scale, and I say, let's play on D Dorian, we're going to start the C major scale. I'll just play it again. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We're going to play it from D. So that changes environment, sort of the ambiance, and gives us a couple of different places to step off from in the improvisation. A lot of times when I'm thinking modal, I think of chords maybe not so much built in thirds, which is, oops, out of tune as usual, but chords that are built in fourths or fifths. So we'll try a little bit of that, and then when I say a blues, I'm talking about something that's celebrated in many different forms across many different North American styles. Usually has drums and bass, but you can play the blues in any key, anywhere, in any situation. But it's sort of the backbone. The idea of the blues is the backbone of rock and roll, of jazz, country music. It makes serious appearances in reggae. You can find it in sambas. You know, it's everywhere. That chromatic, that sort of thing, and it's instantly recognizable across the world. So, what do you think? We'd try a little D Dorian and then go to an F blues.
Sounds good.
All right. Let me just see. Guitars are never in tune, even if the tuner says it's in tune. It's always a little bit of a thing. New strings for this wonderful jazz appreciation moment. All right. Nice. Back to the D Dorian. So that was completely unplanned, and we're totally improvising in the D minor Dorian mode off the top, which was kind of beautiful. I mean, we definitely reached some really nice colors there, and the great thing about improvising freely is that we're not really subscribing to anything but kind of the mood of the moment. And that's one of the big parts of improvising, whether we were, making crazy scrapey sounds or trying to play melodically within the mode. And then we went to one of the classic places that musicians, or as I was saying, around the world can get together on the blues. It doesn't matter, and this is kind of quoting Wynton Marsalis, the great Wynton Marsalis, who in his travels, he says it doesn't matter where he goes, if he meets a bunch of players of any, it doesn't really matter how well they play or not, or whatever their investment in the music is. If you say, okay, let's play a blues, everyone can do it to some level, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to relate to one another as musicians, but also as for the listening public, it's something that's instantly familiar because it's such a big part of, again, anything. My little theory is anything with a drum kit, even though we don't have one right here, we have one in our heads, right? So, but that's a big part of our North American style, right? Is to have that sort of beat going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I've grown to appreciate more. When I'm improvising, in particular, like with jazz improvisation, really like thinking, really having that rhythmic pulse at the forefront.
Mm-hmm. It's a big part of the music. And we're really lucky here in Halifax to have our man Jared Grinnelli around, who is always talking about the rhythms in the music. And it's been really great to I've been very, very lucky to work with a lot of incredible drummers. So. That's always something that's that I'm working away on with the metronome. Maybe not everyone knows what a metronome is, but it's a classic thing you might see on top of a piano in anybody's house, or you can download the app, the metronome app, and it's something that helps us keep time. Some people are born with perfect pitch, where they can hear any note that you play. Not a lot of people have perfect time, and it's everybody and. Some people do. I've definitely met them. I'm not one of them. So I'm always working with my metronome to try to keep my rhythmic energy available to me and to the people that I'm playing with, so that we can push the music forward, because music is a time-based art form, right? Like dance, like theater, film to some degree, although in film you get to mix around with time, but still there's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. And the middle part is the part where especially in music, where your stamina and your the amount of time you've put into it really shows. You're practicing and keeping that rhythm happening at some level, because it's basically, even if you play a note, that note as it rings out is creating vibrations, and it's they're really fast rhythms, but it's the rhythms of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
I had a gig a couple weeks ago where we were improvising on Beatrice.
Oh, yes.
And rhythmically we were improvising, but then there was a point where all of us just stopped playing, but the form was still moving forward in time, and then we all landed on the same note.
Isn't that great?
It was like the most wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
And the time is still moving forward, and then everything's silent. And bam, like we all come back in, and
that's another part of developing, especially in jazz and improvising, where you develop your ear, not only for the pitches, but also for the rhythms and for the form, if there is one. But even if there's no official form, sometimes a form will emerge, and if you're really listening, you can catch on to that form, and that's where silence can happen. That's really comfortable, and everybody, as you say, stops playing, comes back at the same time. There's also a level of, it's kind of unproven by science, but the great Frank Zappa talks about it, and I've heard other people talk about it, where if you're working with a certain group of musicians, very hard on music of any level of difficulty, there is a telepathy that can happen, and that is sort of part of the improvisation thing, where like you said, like you guys didn't say a word, and you all stopped, and you all came back at the same place. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that happen. You mentioned I was working at Neptune, we were on our 72nd show of Shrek, and everybody was just like, ugh, everyone. So there's like 40 people on the crew, all the musicians, all the actors, all the people in the stagehand, the front of house, whatever. And one of the guys, incredible actor, but he did something that actors do sometimes, and musicians do it too. He did a jump where he skipped over. It wasn't very many lines, but just a little scene. He just sort of jumped ahead. And you've never seen 40 people snap right in. It was just the most amazing. And it was, obviously there are people in headsets going, no. But still, there was a level of telepathy within all of those people who had worked together for so long on that same thing. And I think it's part of what we can do as humans is when we form together and we make groups of any kind, that we can develop that sort of thinking, and definitely improvisation has been a big part of that development for me, when we talk about improvisation, there's, again, we started with an open chord, and then we went into something that had a form, and there's definitely some things about improvising over chords that are a little bit different when the harmonic movement's going. And there's like a whole system of modes. I guess I just wanted to talk about sort of the three main modes, and there's a fourth one too that's been cropping up quite a bit. There's a major scale and all the modes, the 7 modes that come from that. The melodic minor scale, all the modes that come from that. The harmonic minor scale and its 7 modes. And there's kind of a new one that's, for me anyway, but it's been the harmonic major scale, which is something that's been... so it's got that major third, but we got the flat 6 in there as well. So that's been a kind of a new thing for me to fool around with as far as the 7 note scales are concerned.
Powerful note
that the flat 6 in there is, again, for me another exploration for me as far as scales and chords is concerned. It's the great Barry Harris, who you may have. Did you ever see him in Toronto? He was around maybe when you were there. I missed him. But a friend of mine hosted a workshop that he would do every once in a while. And Barry Harris is an incredible piano player, and you can find him on all kinds of amazing recordings. But one of his things, he didn't really invent it, because who invents music, but he, listening for years and playing professional years with the highest level of jazz, developed some theories around the bebop scales. So we've got that little chromaticism going on, right, which kind of gets us back to the blues a little bit. There's been a bit of theory talk about how in the teaching of jazz musics, the blues somehow have disappeared, right? So this is, these scales kind of bring back that chromaticism. so I've been fooling around with a lot of that, and each one of them is the big component. The rascal in the scale is the flat six.
Yeah.
Right.
Could you like just break down what you're just like playing? Like
Sure. Well, if we think of a major scale, then so we have a step, a whole step, another whole step. Then we have a half step, then another whole step, then another whole step, and then a whole step, and then a half step back to the root of the scale, but an octave higher. When we think of the bebop scale, we're going to add a note. A lot of modal talk is like we're subtracting a note or subtracting the distance between the notes. But in this case, we're going to add the flat six back in there. And sometimes referred to as the Neapolitan sixth from Beethoven's, I forget which, I think it was the third, that he wrote for Napoleon. And then tore it up because Napoleon turned out to be not the greatest. But that's that six, the flatted six is something that is leading us somewhere, right? In the major bebop. So I'm adding a chromatic interval, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, or sorry, half step, whole step, half step, another half step, and then whole step. So what we get is an 8-note scale. And what's great about an 8-note scale is it fits across bar 4/4 really nicely. And then there's 3 other ones that also include that flat six interval and give us that chromatic step, which is a great thing. Have you ever tried them out yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was one of the foundational things I learned in school.
Right.
But something it's interesting. I always find there's always like a little bit of difficulty like learning to apply that within like the context of like a tune without it sounding too mechanical.
Truly. Yeah.
So how do you kind of like build that into like a more musical phrase yourself?
I think what I've been working on is also the harmony that kind of comes with it, which is give me some really interesting harmonic moments. I think what it's helped me with is to get that chromatic step back in and sort of be able to play refer to the blues. That I, no matter how modern the player or how hip it is, I'm still hearing people use that chromatic step, that blues influence. Mm-hmm. I was listening to last night. I was playing along with Emmett Cohen, is that his name?
Oh yeah.
And he does a live stream with a full band, and it sounds really amazing. And they played A Night in Tunisia. And I forget who the members of his band were, but again, listening to it, and these guys are just like the top-notch players and really, evolved. The thing about jazz, and I should say, but I could hear the blues in what they were playing. Jazz has evolved so much. There's been so many. It's kind of hit a prism. The evolution of jazz is directly tied to the evolution of the recording industry, right? Like they both kind of started at the same time, and the popularity of the music really happened because the recording industry was blossoming, even with the old wind-up gramophones, and then with the introduction of radio and live broadcasts, like Duke Ellington had a live broadcast, not unlike what we're doing today, except maybe with no cameras, right? But a lot of the mediums that we evolved and have been kind of like shrunk down to the bits and bytes on our computers and these wonderful cameras here and stuff like that. But all of that stuff, jazz was always there. It was always a presence. And so the distribution of the music happened I mean, a lot of music obviously were distributed, by record makers and labels and whatnot. But the growth of jazz, as the layers of what you can do, you can play Django style, you can play old New Orleans style, you can really stick to that and become a total specialist in that area. You can listen to the improvisers, you can listen to, any number of artists and follow their entire discography and how they evolved stylistically and what kind of different, influences they had. But I guess it's the level of influence in jazz music can seem to be really daunting, like how do you make that all work? And what parts of it can you take it from yourself and develop in your own sweet way? Right? Well, we can't play that, but I don't want to get kicked off. But there's definitely a lot of things that have evolved. But I guess for me, it always comes back to some kind of a blues thing, some kind of a chromatic step, no matter what. No matter what we're doing in Jazzland. How we doing there?
We are great. We've got lots of people tuning in.
Oh, people are tuning in?
Minor in the chat.
Oh, nice. Okay. Maybe let's try an unnamed standard. And we can just play the chords, I guess, right? Mysterious. You can see the starlight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I was, kind of going for it there, trying to play a little bit of a walk-in bass line. Definitely trying to work in some of those bebop scales and some of that blues stuff I keep going on about. Definitely on the bridge of that mysterious piece is the whole tone scale, and there's also the definitely some a reference to the diminished scale, and those are two other sort of man-made scales or symmetrical scales. The whole tone scale is something where we just go up in whole tones. It's a 6-note scale, and it's really easy to play on just about any instrument. Maybe the trombone it's harder. I don't know. No,
it's depends where you start from, but it's
right. And then the diminished scale has always been a bit of a confusion for me. I was very lucky to get a lesson with the great Miles Okazaki, who was up here in Lunenburg with Dan Weiss, two of the amazing Pi recording artists, that's a label that I love a lot, and I've heard so much amazing music from. So the diminished scale is, it starts again with the half step, the whole step, the half step, and that's one of them. The other one starts with a whole step, then a half step. But on the guitar, eventually it becomes symmetrical. It's hard to start right away, but and then there's all the intervals that.
Do those patterns sit really well on guitar?
Yes and no. Yeah, it certainly is easy to create a pattern on the instrument. Guitar is so pattern orientated, so it's very easy to do, and it can be maybe a little bit too sometimes. Guitar players are very guilty of just shifting a pattern around, right?
Mm-hmm. I find that you can know it
you can hear it.
You can hear it, which I think that's a good starting point for some people.
Well, for me,
yeah.
For sure, right? And that pattern stuff really helped me to get a lot of these different scales together. But obviously there's a non-musical thing that can happen if you're always relying on a pattern, and you might not hear something that's going on that if you're going to rely on a pattern, you might end up in a bit of a box, right? Mm-hmm. So you're always, I always try to be aware of it, and to varying degrees of success.
I guess when we're talking about scale and the use of the scales, I know it's a larger conversation question, but what are some of the things that you use to know when to employ a certain scale? I mean, I think that's a good improv question that I was just seeing coming up in the chat is when do you
where and when? Yeah. It's always easy when I'm beginning an improvisation. It's been over the years that I've played, and different mentors that I've either had personally or sought out online or through print. One of the things that a lot of people come back to is the melody, and referring to the melody, which I definitely try to do, because that melody is going to be built on a scale. It's related to the chords that you're playing. If you're in standard land, or even if you're not, if you're playing original compositions, which we do, we write our own stuff, and I'm honored to be asked to play other people's music. So there's always that, okay, where's the melody? What's it doing? And how am I going to employ that melody? And what scale is it based on? So that's kind of my first little clue as to what the scale is. I do a lot of work on the intervals that are involved in the scale, so that can sometimes determine, again, if I'm playing from the melody, as I at least start from there. The intervals are an integral part, integral. again, we started today with a Dorian scale. So then playing that in thirds, and then I might play that Dorian scale in fourths. And that is, you know, if the chord's a D minor or a derivative of D minor or related to that scale. A lot of times in standard jazz land, chords are moving in intervals of fourths, right? And so the scale that you employ can often be the same one, but you're just starting on, that's where the modes come from, you're starting on a different note of that scale. So I'm heading in a direction, but all of those chords kind of relate to A flat major. Excuse me. And then the next key center comes up. So the scale that I use is often related to what the key center of the harmonic movement is. However, in many modern jazz pieces, the chords are not moving in that sort of predictable way. So you start to build up some strategies to deal with sort of non-linear harmonic movement, stuff that's moving in thirds. And a lot of that starts to not be so much scale-based, but arpeggio-based. And what I mean by arpeggio is, I've been told, my Italian not being what it could be, I've been told that arpeggio means broken chord. Right? So if I have these notes, I'm playing C, E, G, B, so I'm going to break that up. So the arpeggio is often the sort of short scale form that I'm going to use to get through something that's, again, maybe not going to land. The chords aren't going in a predictable manner, but you know, moving a little bit more, say in minor thirds. You know, that's pretty common. That kind of stuff. Yeah. And so that's going to be a bunch of Lydian movement, referring to a piece by the great Joe Henderson. So then I'm going to probably, you know, we were talking about patterns. I'm going to definitely have a pattern. That's going to get me over each of those chords as they appear in their, you know, their minor third movement. Just go up a minor third, down a half step, up a minor third, down a half step. So that's going to throw me into, you know, in the space of 8 bars, I'm going to be playing in 8 different key centers. So I need a strategy that's going to work for that, and the chords are going to go by quick. You know, it's a fast tune, and so then I'm really trying to arpeggios are my best solution for that. You know, or a little pattern that's sort of arpeggio based.
I guess having like a fundamental understanding of your scales, like your major scales, is like, you know, it's something that always needs to be hammered home to be able to make it through. Yeah, it's the getting the modes together in the major scale, melodic minor and harmonic minor systems is a great place to begin. And you really don't have to do it fast, but really following the advice again of many mentors that I've had is to be able to play them all in all keys, right? And that's the routish part of getting your, as they say, some of your chops together, is playing, you know, C major, F major, B flat, etc., etc. So I can play all of those scales in every key, all over the neck, starting with, you know, as far as guitar land is concerned, I have patterns for my first, my second, and my fourth finger, and I can play them in every key. And, you know, that didn't happen overnight, right? And I still work on it all the time, you know, just to keep, as they say, keep your chops up. Right? Oh, yeah, 100%. Right. Like, that's always something I also incorporate into my, like, practice, is, like, come up with a pattern and then, like, try to put it through all the keys or all the modes of one scale. Right, and that's a way to work on your tone, right? Because there's only one way to work on the sound that you make, and the sound that you make is so
big part of what you bring to an ensemble or to the music itself. So simply working on some scales can really help develop what your ideas are and your ability to respond in an improvising way, because that's another thing that practice can really help, like your own self-practice, is when you go into an improvising situation, be it a free improvising or structured or playing on chord changes, that you have a depth of things that you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I should say, like, one of the biggest things, again, getting back to rhythm, working with a metronome, but also probably the biggest thing I didn't really speak much about is transcribing. Whether you're actually going to sit down and write every note out, or just, as they say, do a lift, where you take a little segment of a solo and you learn it, and then you take that stuff that really interests you, and again, you move it into all 12 keys, and then suddenly you've got a little phrase, and you got a phrase from a master or someone who's really established and doing their thing, and you're like, oh, so you get their phrasing, a little bit of their tone. I love lifting trumpet solos. They're a little easier, generally speaking, and they fit on the guitar really well. As do I'm a big I have a brass envy, so I'm always like trombones and trumpets are like I'm listening to that. And that stuff is a little easier to grab than the super crazy saxophone solos, which I do attempt every once in a while. Or obviously, I'm going to go to the masters of the instrument that I play, and listen to them and take what I can from them. In a quick way. This a lot of people were asking a while ago. What are you listening to? What are you doing during this pandemic? Because we have so much time off. And obviously transcribing, but one of the big things I miss is having a rhythm section, and to be able to play with a bass player and a drummer. So I decided I would just join everybody's band, right? So I joined Miles Davis's band, and I joined John Abercrombie's band, and we were talking about Emily Remler, right? Who I was, I know our dear colleague Sam Wilson was mentioning her. I, was listening to her, and join her band and play along, and so I'm not like, oh man, I'm gonna get every lick, but I'm like, I just want to get that feel.
So you like put on a recording and then just kind of like.
It's so easy now with YouTube. Like it's just like, oh my god, like I can play with anybody I want, and they don't ask me to turn down. They don't say you're out of tune. It's just like I'm there. I'm not really there, but you're in the moment. Like I was playing last night with that ensemble that Mr. Cohen had going on, So you can just kind of sit on it. Sure, you're not going to play every note exactly the way they're doing it or whatever, but at least you're playing with some great players, and I've been lucky here in Halifax has welcomed me so with open arms, and I get to play with lots of great musicians and learn so much from them. So I love this Jazz Appreciation Month that you guys are doing, because I think it's going to bring out members of our jazz community that get a chance to hear different people and talk about the works of folks that we love, and it's been great. How's it going?
We got time for a bit more. More playing. Yeah. We got about 10 minutes or so.
Oh, great! Well, maybe we should play another something or other.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think about. Maybe we should try. We could try. In six, or that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Would that be okay? Yeah.
And I should say, maybe if anyone has any questions,
maybe that's more time like that. Yeah.
Well, we can put you can get your questions in now. We'll reference it after we're done playing.
We'll just play a little, maybe just like 3 courses of this, and then we can answer some questions. Should we do that online? Yeah, that's a good idea. Eh? Yeah. Okay. it's fun. And we haven't really done this much.
It's great.
It's really great to play. It's so musical.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the core things that is so amazing about improvisation is just being able to get together with even like not even a gig, you're just doing it for fun, like having a conversation in like in a different language, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the most important parts of any musical experience.
And I think that's like a core concept to keep in mind. It's like you are having a conversation, so you want to be, no one likes to be just like talked at for all.
This is true.
Yeah, you want to have like a conversation with the person that you're playing with.
Yeah, and it's a great way to learn to listen on many different levels. And improvisation is being studied. There's a whole course and all kinds of different levels of how improvisation works its way into our lives. Not just musically, but that's what we do. That's what humans do. We improvise all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I improvised breakfast today. Right?
All right. Well, we don't have too many questions in here, but we got lots of great comments of people appreciating the wisdom that you've given us.
Oh, well, we can call it wisdom. It's all borrowed.
But I guess one question I have for you that I would like to know is like, how did you sort of get interested in improvisation and jazz? Was that something that you started out with, or what were some of your early like musical experiences?
Well, yeah, definitely. I was my experience from music growing up was mostly like finger picking guitar, like really into John Fahey and Bruce Cockburn, all the Delta, Reverend Gary Davis, Mississippi John Hurt, Blind Lemon Jefferson. And that was kind of the roots of where I began to play guitar, and after like learning like the sort of strummy tunes and developing technique was definitely started out finger style. And then somebody bought me a Giant Steps for my birthday. I think I was like maybe 16, and I put that on, and I just couldn't believe it. And I needed to know what that was all about. As it turned out, St. FX was just beginning their jazz diploma program. This would have been 1980, and I graduated from high school in 1980. And I applied and got accepted. And I mean, I think the bar was pretty low. They were letting a lot of people in. So I brought my and my ambition there was to learn how to, my theory. My theory wasn't that bad, but I needed my harmony. I wanted to use that program to help with my harmony. And of course, along the way, I've suddenly got some great teachers and great people around, and I have really no idea what's going on, but suddenly I'm in an ensemble. I'd never been in a band. I didn't have the equipment to be in a band, and so I, got an electric guitar and an amp eventually, and then I was really lucky. There was two guys that were on staff there at the time that were a little bit more into sort of the ECM thing. There's a great guy named Fred Hamilton, and Fred turned out to be the teacher of Kevin Brunkhurst and lots of other people around. I think Ben Holt studied with Fred. So Fred eventually went to North Texas and became the head of their guitar department, and very influential all over the place. Incredible player, incredible writer, great bass player too, And he was friends with Bill Frisell. And so Fred said, "Yeah, Geordie, you should really check out this, this Bill Frisell guy. I think you'd really like him. He's kind of, I was talking about the layers and the strata of jazz, and Frisell had really kind of taken he'd studied with Jim Hall, so he had all the Jim Hall stuff going on. Mm-hmm. But then he was also into the samplers really early on. He had like a big bunch of delays and all that kind of, he was doing stuff like no one had ever heard. It was so amazing and revolutionary to me. And the whole ECM records and all that kind of stuff. And then I discovered the Association for the Advancement of Creative Music, the AACM, and two of my biggest heroes emerged from that, Anthony Braxton and Henry Threadgill. And those are two composers that really developed entirely different structures, but still, based on the idea of improvisation and coming from the idea of playing from something. It wasn't maybe like chord changes kind of thing, although they can both blow on changes, but they just developed their own harmonic and rhythmic structures. And that to me was very interesting. And so I pursued that to varying degrees.
Great. We do have a couple questions coming in. From Paul St. Amand. Hey, Paul. Thanks
Hello,
for tuning
Paul.
in. He wants you to, if you could talk a bit about how your role changes depending on the size and makeup of the rhythm section.
Right. Well, if I'm playing with a piano player, I tend not to play a lot of chords. It depends on what the style is. You know, in the big band, you know, like we've played together in Paul Barrett's big band. So I will, you know, I'll do my attempt at the Freddie Green style. If it's just me, I'm going to play more chords. If there's two guitar players, try to take turns, and even with a piano player, try to take turns. But really, when it comes to jazz, like, you know, bebop kind of influenced standard playing, the piano's kind of king, you know. So I'll, you know, try to stay out of the way. But, you know, if there's a little place for me in there, but really, you don't need two harmonic players, generally speaking, unless the music's written that way, and there's an ambiance that is created by having two harmonic players going at the same time. But harmonic rhythm, you know, as Sonny Rollins and John Coltrane both discovered, you know, you don't really need a piano player or a guitar player, right, to play the music. It helps, and it's a color that's really important. But so my role, if it's trio, obviously I'm going to play more chord solo-y kinds of things, and try to and use the years of working on harmony in that sense. But, you know, just I'm always listening to see, you know, where it's going to fit in.
Yeah. And we've got a question from Christopher. He's saying, as a beginner guitarist, what scale should I focus on learning? I think we covered some of that, but maybe you could just restate some of the stuff that we just talked about.
I would make a reference to the great Mick Goodrick, instructor of Pat Metheny and John Schofield and scores of other amazing professional guitar players. And I would suggest that you look at the Advancing Guitarist book, but get your major scales together. And one of the really most helpful things is the pentatonic scale, which we didn't really talk about that much, but it's such a big part of improvising in so many different ways. So pentatonic scales in all positions on the guitar, that's a real helpful, it's been very helpful for me to have, because it also shows you where the notes are on the instrument. Mm-hmm. Always a mystery.
We've got a question from Al Haley.
Cousin
Al.
yeah.
Cousin Al wants to know,
BC.
Do you explore alternative tunings or prepared guitar, or do you stick mostly to standard tunings?
Prepared guitar, I have an album of prepared guitar called Sculptures that I made just before I moved here. So that's available on YouTube. You can find all of it. If you just type in Geordie Haley, Sculptures, it'll take you to all the tracks there. So that's definitely a prepared guitar, or as I like to call it, the pre-prepared guitar, because it's got a really crazy bridge on it that I can drop all the strings down on. And alternate tunings, definitely in my finger-picking past, and occasionally I will, use drop C or drop G or D. I haven't really gotten into anything that's like some of my compatriots who have like 7 guitars and they're all tuned chromatically or in major thirds only or in fifths, or that kind of thing. I haven't really explored a whole bunch, but I definitely have. But I haven't really recorded or developed a lot of repertoire with it.
Great.
Thanks, Cousin Al.
Okay, great. So I think that's a good place to wrap things up here. But do you have any upcoming shows anywhere people can see you, or where can they find you online as well?
What are we doing online coming up? And it's hard to believe, but it actually happened. I've been off and on a member of the AF of M, the Federation of Musicians. It's a union, such as it is. And on the 27th, I do believe, Tuesday, the 27th, we're doing a live stream similar to this from Scott Ferguson's studio. And I'm going to do a solo thing. I just did one for the 21st Century Guitar Conference. I put a few of my solo pieces up. That is online somewhere. You can find me on YouTube, no problem. There's all kinds of performances there. But also a group that I've been a long-standing member of called the Riot Squad is reuniting after quite a hiatus. So,
amazing.
So we're doing that on the same day. So that's our next upcoming thing. And then, this or that. But there's really, as you know, there's a few things. Sometimes I'm at Kyo with Andrew Miller and Pat Reed. I might make an appearance at the local. Who knows?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to our sponsors, TD Bank Group. We are very fortunate to have their support with all of these virtual events. Province of Nova Scotia, the Halifax Jazz Festival. I want to give a big shout out to Ben and the folks at Rock Band Productions. Ben behind the scenes, you can't see, but he's the one controlling all the cameras and making us all sound good. So thanks a lot to Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
You'll want to stay tuned. I know there's been a few questions about, I get it multiple times a day, about what's happening in the Halifax Jazz Festival this summer. And all I can say at this point is just stay tuned, as we'll be announcing plans over the next months as the situation evolves. And we've got lots more exciting virtual events coming up. You can check us out. We'll have a Mother's Day concert coming up on May 9th. So stay tuned for more information about that. And lots of other great workshops that are coming up for Jazz Up Your Spring. And we'll be moving forward into the summer. So the best way to stay in touch is to subscribe to us on social media, visit our website and our newsletter at halifaxjazzfestival.ca to find out more activities. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for tuning in. Hope that everyone's staying safe out there. Support artists where you can, where it's a really difficult time for everyone across the board, and for artists as well. So support your favorite artists, buy some merch, go check out some live music if you can, as we are super fortunate to have that here in the Maritimes right now. So just do your thing and stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Ben.